Puad Zarkashi has responded to Rafizi Ramli's claims about PKR orchestrating a by-election in Pandan. Meanwhile, we have several updates about the global fuel crisis and the West Asia conflict. Stay tuned for this and more on KiniNews. Umno Supreme Council member Puad Zarkashi has hit out at Pandan MP Rafizi Ramli over his remarks on the possibility of a by-election in the Pandan constituency. In a post on Facebook, Puad accused Rafizi of seeking sympathy and said it would only drag the country into wasting public funds. He said this in response to Rafizi's remarks in a podcast released last week, where he claimed that PKR could be pushing for a by-election in his constituency and might nominate former Investment, Trade and Industry Minister Tengku Zafrul Abdul Aziz as their candidate. This is despite the deadline for holding a by-election having passed in December last year. In explaining his claim, Rafizi had pointed to the latest statements from party leaders urging him to leave the party, and PKR President and the Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's surprise visit to Pandan last week. Rafizi insisted that he had never seen Anwar visit Pandan in his entire life, and said his premonition was solidified by an earlier show-cause letter he received from the party accusing him of effectively declaring his resignation. Meanwhile, Puad cited past examples of by-elections by PKR and said that holding a by-election would only make the party known as one that holds elections to resolve its internal issues. Under Article 54 of the Federal Constitution, a by-election must be held if a parliamentary seat becomes vacant. However, it is not required if the vacancy occurs within 2 years of Parliament's next scheduled dissolution. The cutoff date fell on December 19th last year, as the first sitting of the current Parliament was on December 19th, 2022, with the current parliamentary term due to expire no later than December 18th, 2027. A trade association said that the widening difference between subsidized and market rate fuel prices on top of extra costs for digital purchases is among the reasons why certain petrol stations in the country are running out of fuel. This is despite the government's assurances that Malaysia has enough petrol and diesel until the end of May. According to Bumiputra Petrol Station Dealers Association of Malaysia President Abdul Aziz Sapian, the current supply disruption is not just a temporary logistical issue, but reflects a structural mismatch within the existing system. In response to questions from Malaysia Kini, he said that operators function within controlled margins as price takers, yet bear increasing costs and risk without the ability to adjust prices. He explained that the current price set through the automatic pricing mechanism has created a mismatch with the actual price of stock purchased by dealers. This is as the physical fuel supply chain operates on a longer cycle, involving procurement planning, delivery, and distribution. He said this creates a situation where retail prices change faster than the actual cost of stock at the station level, and as a result, operators are exposed to price volatility risk. Aziz said that under the targeted subsidy mechanism, particularly for diesel, operators are required to purchase fuel at full market price but sell it to consumers at a lower subsidized rate. He added that the price difference is not paid directly to operators, but is instead claimed by oil companies from the government, effectively forcing operators to advance subsidy financing using their own capital. He said this pressure is further compounded by delays in payment, which lock up working capital and increase reliance on short-term financing, along with additional financial costs. Aziz's comments came following media reports, social media posts, and on-the-ground observations that certain petrol stations have run out of diesel.
From now on, you can also listen to KiniNews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Scan the QR code on the screen to follow us.
Iranian Foreign Minister Said Abbas Araghchi said that Tehran was just inches away from reaching a deal with the United States during talks in Islamabad. He said in intensive talks at the highest level in 47 years, Iran engaged with the US in good faith to end war. However, he stated that when they were just inches away from an agreement, they encountered maximalism, shifting goalposts, and blockade. The statement came following a statement from the US Central Command that it will begin implementing a blockade for all maritime traffic entering and exiting Iranian ports. This is in accordance with US President Donald Trump's proclamation. It added that forces will not impede freedom of navigation for vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz to and from non-Iranian ports. Earlier, it was reported that negotiations collapsed when Tehran refused to agree to halt its nuclear efforts. US Vice President J.D. Vance had said that Washington has not seen a long-term Iranian commitment to forego developing nuclear weapons. Pakistan had hosted negotiations in Islamabad over the weekend after it secured a 14-day ceasefire between the US and Iran on April 8. This had led to a pause in the conflict that began on February 28 when the US and Israel launched airstrikes on Iran. Oil prices rose sharply in early trading today after the United States announced that it would blockade Iranian ports starting Monday, dealing a fresh blow to hopes of stability in global energy markets. The move marks a major escalation in the conflict that began when the US and Israel launched military operations against Iran on February 28. Bernama cited a report from the Anadolu Agency as saying that Brent crude, the international benchmark, rose 7% to $102.29 per barrel, while US benchmark West Texas Intermediate crude gained 8% to $104.24 per barrel. Oil prices have swung wildly since the conflict began. Brent crude was trading around $70 per barrel before the war started and had surged past $119 at its peak. On Friday, Brent prices had slipped 0.8% to $95.2 per barrel ahead of peace talks between the US and Iran in Islamabad, Pakistan. The blockade announcement, however, quickly erased those gains and pushed prices sharply higher once again.
If you like the stories we produce, consider supporting us by subscribing to Malaysia Kini. Click the link in the description below or scan the QR code on your screen to subscribe.
Home Minister Saifuddin Nasution Ismail said that the government is facing a major challenge in ensuring that the public is prepared for the potential impact of the global energy crisis without triggering panic or complacency. Speaking at the ministry's monthly assembly this morning, he emphasized that delivering information in a balanced manner is a key priority, ensuring transparency while at the same time striving to focus on the welfare of the people. According to Bernama, Saifuddin said the government is committed to being upfront about the situation and to share information, acknowledging ongoing supply constraints and rising prices. He added that they do not want the public to panic, meaning there must be no denial syndrome. At the same time, he stressed that they also do not want the public to become complacent and adopt a business-as-usual attitude. He added that the goal is to help people understand the reality of the situation without creating unnecessary confusion or pressure in society. Saifuddin also highlighted the need to strengthen enforcement efforts, noting that widening price differences are driving channel switching activities and increasing the risk of smuggling, including via sea routes, posing a direct challenge to enforcement agencies in carrying out their duties.
Semua delegasi Malaysia, saya ucapkan salam tahniah khusus daripada rakyat Malaysia di atas pengorbanan yang telah diberikan, dan kita doakan perjalanan kita yang baru bermula akan lancar sampailah dapat kita mencapai misi Sumut Flotilla 2.0.
This was the message from Amiruddin Shari to Malaysian activists and volunteers aboard ships which were part of the global Sumut Flotilla 2.0 humanitarian mission to Gaza. Amiruddin, who heads the Malaysian delegation, said this in Barcelona while flagging off Malaysians about to begin their journey in the Mediterranean Sea. According to Bernama, he said the government will closely monitor the progress of the GSF 2.0 humanitarian mission to ensure the safety of all Malaysian participants in high-risk zones. He also praised the resilience of the Malaysian delegation in facing risk for the aid mission. GSF 2.0 began its voyage from the port of Barcelona to Gaza yesterday, with thousands of supporters from various countries gathering at Mall de la Fusta to send off the mission. The mission aims to break Israel's blockade on Gaza and deliver humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people. The mission involves more than 80 vessels and around 1,000 participants from around the world, combining maritime efforts with global mobilization on land, including legal advocacy and solidarity campaigns in various countries. And that is all from me today. For more stories, you can go to KiniTv.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, X, YouTube, and Facebook for the latest news updates. I'm John. Thanks for watching.